On this first episode of Convergence, we talk about getting the lawyers in, what is it okay to call yourself, being open to the universe, and what does that even mean, and what makes a project work. Clue, it's not how much you care about it. Oh, Brendan Hutchins, it has been... I would say 3 years, but I don't think we talk about there's that time that we don't talk about that one. So maybe 4 years. But it's nice to be on mic with you again.
Likewise, brother. This is an honor and
we got to actually hang out and meet for the first time.
That was incredible, and you were wearing the same shirt, and.
Every day.
And I gotta say, that was the most tremendous experience. The whole trip was just fantastic, amazing. Finland, England, and Scotland. But staying with you, I was not expecting this full service tour guide experience of Birmingham, and it was just the greatest thing of all time. I've got the Cadbury World photos on my fridge, and it's just a fantastic experience.
Oh well, so now that we've got to know each other, should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't you? Would you like to go first?
Two gentlemen.
Yes. Sorry.
I'm Brendan. I. Typically a home remodeler in Portland, Oregon. And while working, I listened to a lot of podcasts and got obsessed with them and started making them. And I've always been into audio recording and audio and music. And now I'm here as it happens at a crossroads. Coming up on my 40 transition and looking at what I want to do with my life, and also, being confronted with changes outside my control, and so now the things in my life are converging to get me to make a new spot for myself. So I'm here to talk about it and think about it and do about it and feel about it. Also, a lot of feeling.
Yes, I like the doing and feeling about it. That's good. Hi, I'm Mark Steadman. I met Brendan when we were working on a little project I had called Podient, which was a podcast platform, and we've been chums ever since. I copped some slack in a networking group, and I copped it for about 3 weeks because I was talking about myself and talking about podcasting because I thought it was a networking group. I should talk about what I do, and apparently that was the wrong thing to do.
Oh, no.
And so they made sort of light fun of me for 3 weeks. But that's kind of. It's kind of, if convergence is the word, that's another convergence is I like how tech and creativity combine and collide. And so that's the stuff that that really interests me. And I think the two of us, over our numerous conversations over the years, have sort of found areas where we go, oh, me too. And that's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
So you're at a crossroads. What does that look like?
Well, so I've been running this remodeling company for 14 years now, and it's it's paid the bills. It's been easy. It's been fun. I made it myself, and without really any guidance or support. I just was like, all right, I'll just make a website, start remodeling people's homes, figure out how to do it on my own, and I had some. My dad used to flip houses, so I understood what remodels kind of looked like. I had a lot of expanders in that area of safety and the knowledge that this can happen. But I didn't have too many mentors or anything. I just kind of jumped into it. That's the way I do a lot of things, really. And now I've recently and and this business has been very successful. Like it's just been a one-man shop. It's just been me doing all the work, but it's kept me super busy. And I took my first vacation at 14 years in because I was just so busy. Not because I couldn't afford it, but because I had a lot of work to do, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. And I say that in past tense, and it's still I still enjoy it. But recently had a situation where a client was not so happy, and it's been extending to this level where it's my first ever potential lawsuit. And we're about to go into mediation, which is the step before arbitration, and it's complicated because I mean, for one, I feel bad for the guy because he really we had a contract. I did a bunch of work preparation for the project, and that was defined in the contract. And then he cancels the contract before I come and actually do any of the actual construction. And then he wants the money back for the prep work that I did. And I'm like, no, you can't have that. That was money for work rendered. And so now we have to get lawyers involved. And that's not what I want to do with my life. I don't want to have lawyers involved. I just want to be. I just want to exist happily without lawyers. And so it's making me, I mean, not only is this potential lawsuit have the very real possibility of just ending my company. If I lose this lawsuit, there just is no more Rockstar Remodel. That's just what's going to happen. This thing I built for 14 years, it's out of my control. Like I feel like I have a good case. I feel like I'm probably going to win. But there is a possibility I don't, and then it's just boom, it's over. Like there's no other option. I'm not gonna pull out a giant loan to pay this guy off. And so, I have the possibility of starting up a new remodeling company from scratch. Sure, I can do that. I have the skills for it. I have the client base that they're not going to care what the name of the company is. But over the past couple of years, I've also been working really hard in new areas. I've been working on my health specifically and gone through a massive transformation, lost a ton of weight, feel incredibly better inside and out. And I have such a desire and drive to share and to help and to guide that it feels like the right time to possibly shift into something else, and I've been trying to explore what kind of things that's going to be. Like I have a health coach who's also a life coach, and I look at what she's doing and I'm like, maybe I could do that. Oh, that's really interesting. I would love, I could do one-on-one coaching with people and we could talk about their exact problems and this and that. And then she goes into some details about this health thing or that health thing. I'm like, whoa, she has a lot of, she's been doing this for over a decade, but like, whoa, she has a lot of knowledge I do not have. Like, whoa, that's some interesting context. Like I get really excited about this shiny thing. Like right now I'm super into fasting and a whole bunch of different aspects of that. And then she's like, well, yeah, but there's this and there's this and there's this. And I'm like, oh, wow. It's so complicated. There's so much to it. And, that just takes time to get the knowledge and awareness of it. Which, yeah, that can happen. I learned the proper techniques to do drywall. I can learn the proper techniques to do health things. And the beginning of the process is not always, but it's to work on yourself and to do it for your own reasons, to have some sort of drive and motivation to actually learn it and actually understand it fully within yourself, and then that way you can do it outside yourself. At least that's how like a lot of advice for app developers is make something that you want, and then see if there's a market for it, or that kind of thing. Don't just make something because it can be made. And that's what I'm thinking about, and that's what I'm doing, or that's what I'm going towards. Kind of the different avenue than a health coach that I'm coming to is a bit more like a yoga instructor. And yoga has been a huge part of my healing journey. But it's a bit more than, it's kind of like the cross between a yoga instructor and a health coach. And in some circles that would be called a shaman, because it's because I want to help somebody. I want to focus on not just the physical body and not just the mental body and not just the spiritual body, but all of them working together to heal, to heal together. Because I realized from my path that I couldn't just heal one. I tried so hard. I just cut out sugar. I just tried this diet and that diet and all these different singular body things, and it didn't work. And I tried looking into religions and looking into philosophies and all that kind of stuff alone without trying to do anything else, and that didn't work. And I tried I tried different therapies and different practices for my mental health, and all of those just alone, and that didn't work. And then when I finally tried all of them together, that was when I could actually make real transformations in my life. And I want to like share that experience with people. I want to see how different everybody is and how what their needs are, and where their balance is, to have serenity, to have Buddhahood. I kind of feel like I want to say, I want to say it, but I don't want to say it, but I feel it.
Say it.
I feel like a Buddha. I am so like this looming gigantic threat over me. A big financial threat, a huge threat to my livelihood and my safety, and something that I built for over a decade, almost a decade and a half, could just be taken away from me. And I am serene. I am just like, yep, you know what? Things come and go. You know, like you can't have a beginning without an end, or else there's no. It doesn't begin. It just is. So yeah. So I'm not trying to be a Buddha, but I'm thinking about trying to be a shaman. And I don't know what that word means to you as much as it does to me. And also, like I know that my wife Margaret, she feels very differently about that word. She's like, I think I'll call you a yoga instructor. Because to her, there's a bit of like, it's kind of been applied to Native American culture, and so it kind of feels appropriative. Where to me, I like that word is like ancient, and so it's like that's just something Americans applied to Native Americans. And
yes, I feel like it's older than that culture.
Yeah.
I think my attitudes towards those kinds of words have that side of life, that more spiritual, grounded, these things that have existed for countless generations that we've, perhaps forgotten about or neglected. I have more space for them now than I ever did, but that still doesn't mean that I occasionally cock a snook, but cock an eyebrow sometimes, and I sort of, ooh, is that what we're okay? I still refuse, and I was going this way for a little bit, but I still kind of refuse to call myself a coach. Even though a fair amount of what I do is coachy, at least coach-esque, but I sort of bridle at that word, because there is still some baggage around it. There is still some stuff around it that I can't quite reconcile.
Sure. Did you have like organized sports when you were a kid and have any coach issues, or is that some...
No, I don't see. I think I did see it in that kind of coach, like it's sort of sporting metaphor before, but it's not a word we use as much here for sport. I think.
Sure. Is that trainer? What's
your trainer? I mean, a team would have it. I don't know. I clearly I didn't do enough sport for it to really register. But there's the sort of the other side of it, which is a little more akin to life coach and that kind of stuff, which can be ill-defined, but that's usually by bad practitioners, and that's the problem with a lot of this stuff, is that we get these ideas, these maladjusted ideas from people because they are the people who give that stuff a bad name.
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever had a life coach of any sort, and were they any good?
I've had a sort of business coach, and often they merge, because especially as a small business, so much of really with anything, like your life and your personality and the stuff that makes you bleeds into what you do. And who if you lead people, then absolutely, you're leading from your personality and from the baggage that you have. And so I had someone, I think we came at things slightly differently in certain areas, and it got to a point where I felt like the things that person wanted for me weren't actually what I wanted at the time. And I think that person was very aligned with the long-term goals of what I could achieve, and was a good cheerleader. But at the time, I was like, yeah, I get that and I want to be there, but actually right now, I need stability. And I need to put food on the table. My dad was ill last year, and I was getting into the moment of sort of thinking about transforming to coach for sort of creative people who kind of identify as neurodivergent in some way, and sort of helping them just. And I think what's interesting with a lot of this stuff is people have this idea that you have to lead from this decades of experience or whatever, or that all of these things, and actually so much of it isn't that. It's actually a lot more a partnership. It's just someone who's maybe a couple of steps ahead of you on the path. They still don't know the full direction, but maybe they're a couple of steps ahead, and they're holding your hand, and that is underrated, I think. And that's kind of, I think, what I was envisaging to a degree with what we're doing here, is that it's a way of showing a path for people, and to say this is a valid path, because we're going to get into, certainly from my perspective, and I'm sure yours as well, like how we're actually going to build what we're building, how we're going to make what we're making, and do things differently. And it is, I think, a way of demonstrating to us as well as to other people, like, you can do it this way. It's okay. There is a way forwards, and we're finding this path. We're helping cut down some of the trees, but we're not that many steps ahead of, of anyone else.
And we're both building something new, but also we're going to be doing it in different ways. I can predict.
That will. I think that will be interesting to find out. So, okay. So So I am in the process of building my second media hosting platform after the last one was sold. So 2 years later, I'm at it again. So for the 2 years after, I'd sort of slightly wandered the wilderness a little bit, trying on different clothes and figuring out whether they fit, and not really sort of finding things that I liked and finding elements that I enjoyed. But it wasn't until I was on holiday and actually the plane ride back, I had this moment of going, because I'd contemplated what would happen if you started doing the hosting thing again and created a little platform and made it small and made it this, that, and the other. And I'd sort of stopped and gone, no, I'm not doing it. For all sorts of different reasons. And I think it was enough time had passed and my brain was cleared after a week drinking cocktails by a swimming pool which is really the first time I've had an actual cliched, as you would say, vacation in a long time, where it was literally just the poolside, kind of thing. Turns out they're really useful.
Oh man,
for clearing the mind.
So good.
And so on the plane back, most of the trip I spent with my phone in my hot little hand, just jotting down ideas. And by the time we'd gone through the baggage carousel and I was in the Uber, halfway through my Uber trip, I'd already got the name. I knew what it was. And I knew I wanted to do things a little differently. I knew I wanted to lean into being small instead of having small man syndrome or small dog syndrome, yapping like a little terrier and jumping up at the table trying to get his scraps. Actually being a bit more like a cat and curling up at the head of the table and just go, no, I sit here now. this is where I sit. Yeah,
cat energy.
I already belong here.
I love it.
And so I'm in the process now. I've sort of launched in lowercase letters really way before I was ready, which is fun and interesting. We have our first customer in that this is a podcast that is live to the world, that is not made by me.
Nice.
That is hosted, and
it's working.
It's working. There are still things to do, but it's alive, and and I did my first bit of press this week.
Amazing.
Or it went out this week, and so I think this maybe brings us on to ways that we're doing things differently. And over the last few weeks, I've been getting excited, but also tired thinking about the marketing for something like this, and for any new projects, especially things like software projects. Content marketing is the cheapest and most effective, possibly, way of getting your stuff out there. To do it well, it takes a lot of time and skill and effort and time, and also time.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I was going to do that was creating a whole new podcast project and a newsletter and a whole lot of work. And I got really excited about it. I thought, it's a really good idea. It's something that people need. It's something that I care about. It's something that I can enjoy. And I got into it and started recording episodes. I made a theme tune. I bought the domain names, all the things. I set up, did all the artwork. I joined a podcast marketing the podcast marketing academy, so that I had as good a start as possible to get this off the ground. And then over the last week, it's really hit me that it's all, and when I say it's all, I don't mean for everyone else, but certainly for me, it all just feels like effort. And when I say effort, I don't just mean hard work. I mean, it's a lot of strokes to not swim very far.
Yeah.
Each time.
Oh yeah.
And
against the current.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm now 40, and I would like I'd like to have decided that my life has started instead of waiting for it to start.
Yeah.
I'd like to actually go out and do things and have moments where I sit and play a video game on a Saturday because that's all I have to do today. Because I haven't decided that I have to have all of this effort be expended because that's the only way I know how to move the needle. What would happen if, at least for a few months, I just followed my instinct and followed my intuition and followed my imagination and inspiration and just went, let's see what's out there. Go on, let's just see what comes, see what appears. Say yes, and at least just for a bit, stop. So one final thing, and then I will let you speak.
Sure.
There is a thing from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because of course there is.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm a nerd, where our heroes are in a spaceship, and the spaceship is going up, down, backwards, every direction, and there are lights all over the place and sirens, and the ship is very unhappy, and the ship is complaining, and the two people who are piloting it are fiddling with all these buttons, and suddenly everything stops, and the ship sort of moves serenely, and someone in the back says, "What happened? Did you suddenly make sense of the controls?" And they say, "No, we just stopped fiddling with them. Clearly the ship has a better idea of where it's going than we do."
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about that for a while. Why don't I stop trying to steer the ship and actually let the ship steer itself? Because it might have a sense of where it wants to go. It's worked before. Podient was a side project. I didn't do any marketing for it. I just built a good product, and I talked to people who I thought might be interested in it. You could call that marketing, like, absolutely.
Sure.
You could call that marketing, but it doesn't feel like marketing,
No.
and that's the point.
Yes.
It's that push, it's that constant, we've got to push, that I'm really resisting. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the same thing that happened with me with Rockstar, is that I didn't do any marketing either. When I very first started, I printed up little flyers with the little tearaway tabs at the bottom of it and put them in some Fred Meyer, some local grocery stores, bulletin boards and stuff. And the only calls I got from that were from the yellow pages.
Oh yes, I remember
the
those.
white pages. The business things are like, oh, you need to advertise, obviously. And so didn't do that ever again. But and I had a Craigslist ad, I think. And I think I only did that once because I got my first client, and then word of mouth takes over, and it's just I never needed to advertise in that whole time, and I don't plan on that again. Like that, I felt that was a fantastic way to not swim against the current. And I have no interest in trying to sell people on what I'm doing. I plan on just demonstrating what I want to do, and the people that want to find it will come. The people that want it or need it will be there to find. Like that's my. It might be a bit Pollyanna, I think. I don't know that if that's the right term, but.
Well, I think we should pull on that thread, because that's one of the pieces of advice that they we now 20 years on from the internet, or from sort of Web 2.0, we sort of said that the lie has been proven on that. You can't say build it and they will come. But so I kind of want to know there because you can do the same thing. Like what I was hearing there is thinking about. Well, if we just say marketing is just telling people what you do and making them interested, perhaps, but telling people what you do, and those who connect with it will connect with it. If we call that marketing, then the best way to market is what you did is, I think the Craigslist ad is great, actually, because, I did something similar for Podient, which is how really everything started. I wrote a post on Medium, it got, found by one guy, and the rest is history. I think the same thing applies here, but then what you do is you do the stuff. You do the thing that it is that you do. And then from there, you do that and people like it and you do it well, and you encourage people to tell their friends and to tell people and say, listen, if this was helpful for you, then please tell other people. And maybe you incentivize. And maybe that's marketing, or maybe it's just running a good business. And
for me, I guess with the remodeling company, my biggest saving grace was Yelp, which was such a blessing and a curse. Like, I was constant. I mean, so many businesses, so many people right now are at the whims of what anybody can write in a starred review on the internet. But like, I got super lucky and fortunate that I had a bunch of good people that I worked for that wrote good reviews. And when I was starting out doing remodeling, Yelp was pretty new, and especially Yelp for contractors. Like, it was mostly just,
I'd always associated with like restaurants and cafes and
yeah. But they had good Google juice, whatever the term is,
more food,
and
Google food,
And so when people would search for remodeling Portland, whatever, the Yelp page would come up and it would show 5 stars because I had like 3 to 5 stars early on, and that got me a lot of work, got me a lot of new clients, and that really helped. So thinking about that, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to want to try and mimic that probably. And I can definitely think of ways to do that and getting people around me that are interested in it, because I have a small community here. And that's another interesting difference between your startup and mine is mine's going to be pretty local. Although I will have things that could be distance for sure, but primarily I'm going to be local. My idea is to eventually have my own studio that's built up and has like a yoga area, sauna area, and coaching areas, and this kind of oasis I want to build for people to come to and connect with themselves. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to think about the different ways to market and tell people about it. I guess I could do a podcast about it. Because that is the way that you build an audience. I heard this from the. I was going to say I heard it from the great Mark Steadman, but I know that's exactly the opposite of your advice, and so I don't want to put the opposite words in your mouth.
I was going through. So one of the things that I'm doing at the moment is seriously contemplating getting rid of all sort of my past brand names. And just being Mark instead of being Origin. I mean, Bramble has to have a name because it's a thing.
Yeah,
I can't call it Mark.
Where are you hosting your podcast? Oh, it's on Mark.
Yeah, it's on Mark. Just over here on my left arm. So, but everything else, Origin Podcast Services has been the name of my business, or just Origin as I call it. That's been the name of my business for the last 2 years. And I've had all sorts of business names before. Never have I actually just used my name. And it's weird to sort of contemplate why that is and try and connect with it. And there's always been something, some kind of aversion from using just from it just being me, I think, and connecting with me, and especially as part of what I'm doing is I'm mixing in all of the weird and varied things that I do, making music that has no consequence. Like it's not like, if you want to buy a track, that's great, but that's not what I'm banking on. And then there's the kids' book and other bits of writing and weird little video game toys that I've made and all those kinds of things. I want them all to be part of the same place, and you can engage with those and then think, okay, well, I want to work with this guy to help me make a thing, or to help me just be alongside me when I'm making my thing week in, week out, and no one seems to be engaging with it. Like, what can we do there? And all that kind of stuff is interesting, but it's all, just being that one person. How does that ring, for you as someone, again, who's had a brand name with Rockstar? What are you sort of thinking it's going to be Brendan? Is that something that you've given any thought to?
I actually haven't. I
think that's good.
I love how fast you come up with names for things, and it's always just like so spot on. I love the names, like even for this podcast, it was like, well, perfect. Don't even have to think about it. Just yes. And like Rockstar came to me pretty easily because I was just, I was just I was doing handyman services on the side. I was an electrician working for a shop, and they the recession was hitting, and so there was fewer and fewer electrical jobs to do, and so I was just picking up more and more side gigs. And eventually, that was my full-time job, was side gigs, and there was no electrical. And I was like, well, I mean, here I am. I guess I should make a company. And at the time, being young and dumb and naive about what I was doing to my body, I was drinking a ton of Rockstar energy drinks. And then also, I would listen to music because I hadn't discovered podcasts yet. I would listen to music while I was working, and I would be singing along because I just can't help it. If there's music playing and I know any of the tone, the melody or the lyrics, I'm going to be singing. And like I had multiple clients tell me, "Are you going to be a rock star? Because like what this is great." And so it just the name just kind of fell into me, and then I love the alliteration of the RR, and so that was just easy. And I'm hoping that something similar will happen with this. I don't particularly like the sound of Brendan the Shaman. That's not ringing true to me. But I'm thinking that something will come up. And at this point, there's so many things that have happened for me in my life recently, including this podcast, where everything just fell into place because what I'm feeling is just open to the universe. I'm just like, I'm here. This is what I want to do. This is on my manifestation list. This is what I'm calling in. I feel expanded. I know other people are out there doing it. Other people are just people like me. I'm just a person. They're just a person. They can have it. I can have it. I feel just accepting and knowing that what I need is going to come. And I guess that's faith, but it doesn't feel like faith. Like faith almost seems a little bit like worrying, like that there is any possibility that it wouldn't happen, but you have faith that it will anyway. And maybe that's just I think that's a little bit of baggage I carry from my mother's faith. But anyways, I feel secure. I feel like it's gonna happen, and I am excited to see it unfold. And so the name, I had not given it any thought. And I probably will more now that you ask. Maybe we can talk about that next week. But I'm excited to find out and and tell you all about it when I do.
There's an interesting phenomenon around new projects, and I think I am guilty of this myself. That when you tell people about something that you haven't done yet or that you're planning to do, you get the dopamine hit from talking about it, and you get the hit of the project without actually doing any of the work, and that can have some knock-on effects.
Yeah, for sure.
That sounded like that resonated.
Oh yeah. No, I I get so excited about things. I get so excited about ideas, and I definitely talk about them way too early. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I've had this idea. I've had this this long-term plan of a sort of compound. I mean, really, it would just be like the place I want to live. I want to have a place that's a little bit farther out from the city. Like right now, I'm in the city. I'm in Portland, and some place that's maybe 15 miles out, 20 miles out. That I've got it's a decent chunk of land, maybe like 10 acres, and there's some sort of water that goes through the property so that I could make ponds or lakes or use that water for power or something. There's a decent amount of space that I could set up a shop and like build tiny homes. A certain amount of space that those tiny homes could be set up and used as either rentals or a showcase, because tiny home building was my previous big new stage in life. That was going to be the next thing that I was going to do, and it still might be. I'm not writing that off. I love tiny homes. I love the design. I love the rethinking of housing and the minimalism of it, the aesthetics of it, the creativity, and again, to reiterate it, the design, the thoughtfulness that's put into the use of space and the use of anything that's part of it. That's so important to me. And then I also had even bigger pie in the sky ideas about having using that water, pumping it through a solar water heater that I've designed in my head to make man-made hot springs pools, and to carve out a space for an amphitheater that could have the hot springs flowing through that, so you could be in your hot springs listening to at the amphitheater. Like, I had so many cool ideas, and they might still happen in like 15 years, but it's probably not. It's probably just a fantastic idea that I'm always going to cherish in my mind.
Well, what it sounds to me, because I was thinking this earlier when you described what you wanted to build with the studio.
Yeah, that's much more likely where I'm going to be putting a lot of these cool ideas in a smaller scale that's more approachable to people.
Sure, but what I get the vibe of is really a retreat center. Especially I was thinking with the tiny homes, because how cool would that be for a group of individuals to come together? Maybe it's a cohort, maybe it's another organization who want to bring their people to you. Maybe it's a group of people you've brought together to do this, come and join you for a week, of reconnecting with themselves, rediscovering things, detoxing, anything like that, and giving people these homes that they can spend a week in, and then also these other sort of healing things like the hot springs and all that kind of stuff, and put on a bit of music. Like, it's actually not dissimilar in some of the circles that I've moved in over the last few years. I go to my business hippie festival, and they have a band on at night, on the Friday night, and there's tents with other stuff going on. There's music, there's food, there's massaging, there's lakes. You can do some cold water swimming or wild swimming. There's a hot tub, there's a sauna, and it's all just in a field. And they put it up, and it's there for 3 days, and then they tear it all down. And I don't know. There's something really, like that's, you could do that.
Yeah, I can. And honestly, that is, yes, the combination of these two dreams is literally the dream. Like, that would be a major thought has been that this would be the compound, the buildup would be a resort of some sort. Like, people would come and stay in the tiny homes. Like, we could put on festivals. Like, I'm over the past 3 years, I've been super into dance music, and the dance music, the section of dance music I like, puts on a yearly festival in the Washington State Desert. It's called the Gorge Amphitheater, and it's this incredible space that's overlooking a section of a river, and there's just like nothing but desert, nothing anywhere you can see, except for this big grassy lawn that just slopes down to this perfect stage. And the festival that they put on It's called the Above and Beyond Group Therapy Weekender, and it's a yoga mindfulness dance festival, and it's just it's perfect. It's perfect for me. It's perfect for everybody that comes. We all love it to death. And I mean, more or less, what I want to do is just make that as my home, and I want to live in that all the time. I want the mindfulness. I want the meditations. I want the yoga. I want the dance music around me always. And I want other people to come and enjoy that too, because I don't want to just be dancing. I mean, I love dancing alone. I do it every day, but I want to share this love and this vision and this place and this serenity. And I think I can do that, and I think I can make a play, and so yeah, so it'd be the idea of building a bunch of tiny homes, which I love, and people would love to stay in tiny homes, and then there could be like a festival going on. It could be with actual acts that come in and out, or people could just be using the space as a retreat, as a cool down, as a relaxing getaway, and probably a bunch of other types of uses for the space as well, and in addition to my housing. But yeah, that's definitely the long term. That's the big goal. It feels realistic and something else, not unrealistic, but
ambitious.
Yeah. It does feel ambitious. That's a great word for it.
One of the things that I think prompted us to have this end up having this discussion is something that I put on one of my little ramble casts, which it's weird. I don't know that I have a long-term vision like that. I don't really have. I never really have had dreams. I weirdly enough. My former therapist asked me about my bucket list at one point, and I was like, I don't have one. And I started trying to work on one. For whatever reason, I don't have those big long-term things, and I think that's really interesting. But I set out these little ideas for things that are sort of, medium term, I guess, like 5 years or whatever. And the difficulty I have is that I mess up the perspective. And so if you think about the artwork for this podcast, if you take out your phone and have a look, it's this road and convergence, meaning the two lines on the road converge into one. And what I so often do in my mind without realizing it is I take that idea and compress that whole distance, and so everything becomes a bit like a theater set. If you walk alongside, just sidle up against a theater set, you actually see how it's two-dimensional, and it's not this big long stretching road. It's actually just a piece of card that's been painted. And I sort of do that, and so what that ends up doing is this sort of 5-year timeline gets compressed, and I become impatient, and I want it to happen now, and I don't understand why it's not happening now. And all these milestones, I can see them right there, because of course I've brought them right close to me instead of what they are far off. And it's one of the things I think I've really struggled with, and it's kind of led me to thinking again about what would happen if I stopped, looking for this map, or stopped looking for the next mile marker, and just, let the universe happen. And I like that we've got these two different approaches here, because yeah, that is a dream, and I think I've almost never dared to. I think there's something in there about not even daring to dream, and I think that's interesting. You're daring to dream, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I can't say that I relate to that flattening, but that's such a visceral analogy that I can understand it really well. That's really interesting to think about. Do you have any fears around this not working?
I think I did when I said to myself, this has to work. And that's been part of the thing with this podcast, the former one that I'm not cancelling, but I'm putting on pause. Just like List Envy, I can't bear to think that List Envy is probably my favourite ever show. I can't bear to think that it's gone away. It's just on pause because I love it. I think because I decided that it, like I said with the previous podcast, that it had to work. That puts the pressure on. Because it's then like, well, this has got to work. This is the next thing.
Do you thrive on that pressure, or does that hinder you?
Well, that's interesting. Actually, I think I have done, and I think it's fueled me. I don't think thrive is necessarily the word, because that would suggest it's kind of nourishing, and I think it's a bit more depleting over time, because it's this constant it's this constant voice of should. It's a big should. If I lean down here, there is a piece of there was an illustration that I got as part of my 40th birthday present, and it is a depiction of me as if I were a Simpsons. And there's my two nephews and my two cats, and the people who made this for me, the people who commissioned it, are very lovely and loving and supportive. The problem is, when I looked at this, I nearly cried. It kind of broke my heart, because the logo that's on my T-shirt is for one of these projects that had to work because it was the next big thing. And I had to kill it off last year because it just wasn't working. It was, it's such a lovely thing to be so grateful for this gift, but also, that's a constant, and that might be why I haven't hung it up yet, because I love the sentiment behind it and I love the support behind it, but it's hard to have your failure almost literally on your chest, because this was what I thought I was going to be. I thought I was going to be an educator. I thought I was going to produce and make content that was going to teach people how to make the best podcast that they possibly can. And the universe went, no, you're not.
Good try, but let's think again.
Yeah, exactly. Restart the game over. And I got into debt and all sorts of things, and there are other factors that made it sort of not work. And hindsight can always tell you, here are some reasons why it didn't work, and it's like, that's great, but could have used those beforehand.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, the difficulty there was that pressure of, well, this is the next thing. This is what I'm doing. This has got to work. And it's got to work because you get into this like Ouroboros snake eating itself thing of, I'm trying to make this work, which means I'm meeting all my client obligations, but I'm not really working that hard on getting new clients because I'm building this new thing. And so now it's got to work because I'm not bringing in any new business. And so it becomes this millstone and this horrible, it kind of becomes a little bit toxic. And so for me, because I'm not putting that pressure on Bramble, I'm letting it be a side project for now, and I'm also letting it be a home for where I keep my podcasts, and a way for me to do podcasting in the way that I want to do it, and in the way that I think certain things should be done and make sense to me, and because it's that, it sort of already works. If I can get to my, target number of customers, then absolutely it would have worked. But it's only a failure because a side project can't really be a failure. It's only a failure if you decide this has to be everything. This has to be the next thing. This has to work. This is my escape module. This is my parachute on the way out. And if then the parachute fails to deploy, then it's a failure.
Yeah, for sure.
Otherwise, it's just a piece of canvas. It's only by making it the parachute and by assigning it that you then make it, this thing that can fail.
I have this thought about all that, and I've kind of alluded to it before because I've talked about how serene I feel and how open to the universe I feel. But like right now, I have no fear around success or failure. Failure isn't a possibility, it's an inevitability. Like eventually it's
entropy, yeah, sure.
It's going to stop, And so unless we define success to include the inevitable ending, which is a beautiful thought. I don't really want to do that right now, but I could do that in the future maybe. But like there is no beginning without an end to define it. There's no black without a white to contrast it. There's no success without failure to compare it to. And so to me there's nothing to fear. There's only to do.
I like that a lot. That makes me think about, something like what I'm building. At some point, it is going to not be a thing anymore. For a variety of reasons. It might be because the person I've passed it down to after I've died, wants someone else to run it, or wants to, or whatever, or it's given over to the people, and it becomes something on a new internet, and it's distributed, it's peer to peer, and it doesn't need a single host server anymore, or it could die, for another reason. But I love that failure or an end is inevitable. The thing that you've made is finite, as we are finite, and so don't stress it too much. And I'm aware, because I would hope there are all sorts of different people who might listen to this. I'm aware that, because I've bridled against this sometimes before, of that's all very well and good. But I'm trying to make a thing, or I'm trying to build, and it's got to work, or whatever. But I think we're trying to come at this from having been in that position before, and having realized it actually doesn't help. And I also know, again, it's you can say that or whatever, but it's true. Caring, really wanting something to happen, really being earnest, and putting all of your effort and all of those eggs in that basket, and all of those, and it mattering so much, and it having to, none of that is actually fuel for the project. None of that actually makes makes the boat go faster, to quote a book. None of that actually helps. Worrying about it, thinking about it, it's just it doesn't. What helps is right action.
Yes. Good words.
Which is a Buddhist thing, isn't it? You would know.
Yeah, I should.
Yeah, and it's
right action. I think of with the program To Be Magnetic. They have if part of right action. That does sound Buddhist.
I think that's what we're coming down to now. Is as we contemplate bringing this to a close. Is I think what we're trying to figure out is how we can navigate, after having spent time navigating things that may in some ways be a bit more traditional, or we've had the sort of a monkey on our back that tells us we should be doing things more traditionally, having known when that's worked for us and when that hasn't. It's now about looking at what happens when we do things the Mark way or the Brendan way, which is to say your way. What would happen, and that can only really work if you don't put this tremendous amount of pressure on yourself. If you don't decide this has to work, if you don't put that on you, then I think you can do it your way. Because, to quote one of my favourite songs by Louis Armstrong, we have all the time in the world. And it doesn't have to be. We don't have to rush, because, and one last thought is for me anyway, is the Oliver Burkeman book 10,000 Weeks. was a subtle revelation for me, and it kind of talked about how we don't have actually that many weeks in our lives.
Yeah.
And if we spend all our time going, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I've launched Bramble. I'll be happy when Bramble gets 400 customers. I'll be happy when Bramble gets in this news thing. And I've been there. Absolutely been there, and I bet you have as well.
Oh, yeah.
That...
Not at all. You got to live in the moment. You got to enjoy this. You got to enjoy the building of it, enjoy the thought of it, and enjoy and revel in it, and be in the moment as much.
Savor
yes, yeah. Because you're only going to get this chance to build it once. Well, unless you rebuild it again, but that's not the point.
But this thing that you're building right now, this thing that's happening only happens once. This
moment is only happening right now, and that's amazing. Do we have time for a little bit of homework?
Oh, please.
And this is pretty far out of left field, but I think that this could be something cool to give us a common language as we work on these separate projects together, and it is pretty a step away from what we have been talking about, but I think it can relate over time. I think it will relate. Do you know your Enneagram number?
9. That's me saying it is 9, not saying I don't know in German. My number is 9.
My number is 9 as well. Oh man,
Hello.
I've been wondering about your number so much, and honestly, 9 was high on my list, but I couldn't say for sure. Oh, that's incredible. Okay, so we're 2 9s.
Yeah, it checks out.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, then I don't have any homework for you. I was going to tell you to check out the We Can Do Hard Things podcast, and they have a 2-part episode with Suzanne Stabile, and she lays out all the different Enneagram numbers from the traditional standpoint, not the current very trendy Instagram standpoint. And it is such a beautiful
because this thing is
way.
Ancient.
Yeah, it's ancient. Yeah. It's such a beautiful way to understand not only yourself, but the people around you and relationships. And Margaret and I really got into it as we were driving around Scotland. And what was really beautiful for us was that, in this 6-week vacation that we took, that was, a lot of us time concentrated together, where for some people that could be at week 5, you could kind of be getting sick of each other. You could be bickering, you could be having trouble and that kind of thing. We grew so much closer together. We understood each other, oh, that's why you do this. And oh, you're doing that because you care so much. And not only because you care, but you doing this is really hard for you, and you do it anyway. And that is so beautiful. And oh, you're struggling in this because it is really difficult. That's not part of your personality. That's not the way your personality works. And knowing yourself and knowing the people around you, I think is so, it opens up compassion just infinitely. At least it does for me in my mind. And so, for anyone listening, I highly recommend checking that out, finding your number, thinking about the number of the people around you, and don't tell them what you think their number is, but have them find it out for themselves. And don't just take a quiz. Really think about what each number is, and decide it for yourself, because it's based on intention. It's based on what you're thinking and what you want, and not what your actions are. So nobody can tell somebody else what their number is. But I am also a 9. I'm a 9-wing 8, and I love the Enneagram. It's been one of my favorite things over the past couple months. So,
well, there you go. On that note, this is an emergent process, which means we don't have a clever sign-off. But we will be here again next week, and you can find us on the internet at convergencepod.com. And if you'd like to know more about us and what we're doing, what we're making, then you'll find ways to follow us there. Until next week, Brendan, take really very good care of yourself.
Likewise. And as always, correct me if I'm wrong.
Ah, and that felt
That felt great.
that felt
Yeah.
right. Yeah.